Hello students, this is your economics teacher INR. I hope you are well and utilizing the time wisely.
In the previous year, you learned about microeconomic analysis. This year, you are going to learn about macroeconomic analysis. First, we will discuss Chapter 1, Introduction to Macroeconomics, such as Introduction, Meaning of Macroeconomics, Scope of Macroeconomics, Economy and its types, and economic system. Students, watch this video very carefully till the end. Okay, I am going to ask you a few questions from previous year economics book. Question number 1, what is mean by economics? Question number 2, what are the definition of economics? Question number 3, define microeconomics. Question number 4, what are the division of economics? Fine, answer the questions. Question number 1, what is mean by economics? The term or word economics comes from the ancient Greek oikonomikos. Oikos means household and nomos means management, customs or law. Thus the term economics means management of household. The subject was earlier known as political economy, is renamed as economics in the late 19th century by Alfred Marshall. Question number 2, what are the definition of economics? There are 4 definition of economics. First, Adam Smith wealth definition. Second, Alfred Marshall welfare definition. Third, Lionel Robbins scarcity definition. Fourth, Paul Samuelson growth definition. Question number 3, define microeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of the economic action of individual units, say household, firms or industries. In microeconomics, we study specific economic units or a very small segment of the economy. They are individual consumer represented by the household, individual, industry and firms. So also we analyze the price of a specific product, the factors of production employed by a single firm or industry and also their revenues and cost. Question number 4, what are the division of economics? There are 5 divisions of economics. First, consumption. Second, production. Third, exchange. Fourth, distribution. And fifth, public finance. Okay students, let us enter into the chapter 1, Introduction to Macroeconomics. First, you are going to learn about meaning and the importance of macroeconomics. Students, take the page number 1. Introduction. The subject economics is classified into 2 branches, namely microeconomics and macroeconomics. Ragnar Fish, a Norwegian economist and the co-recipient of the first Nobel Prize in economic science, coined the words micro meaning small and macro meaning large in the year 1933. However, macroeconomics in its modern form begins with John Maynard Keynes and his book The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, published in 1936. Keynes offered an explanation for fallout from the Great Depression when goods remained unsold and workers unemployed. Hence, Keynes is regarded as the father of modern macroeconomics. Next, meaning of macroeconomics. The word macro is derived from the Greek word macros means large. Hence, macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole. In other words, macroeconomics deals with aggregates such as national income, employment and output. Macroeconomics is also known as income theory. In short, macroeconomics studies the economy as a whole through its major internal subdivisions. An economy is an aggregate structure of total employment, total consumption, total production or supply and general price level, etc. They are also mutually interacting. In other words, economics studies the aggregates of household, consumption, firms and industries, production and government representing economic policies. The subject matters covered in the macroeconomics are the areas such as employment, national income, inflation, business cycle, poverty, inequality, disparity, investment and savings, capital formation, infrastructural development, international trade, balance of trade and balance of payments, exchange rates and economic growth. Importance of macroeconomics. The importance and the need for introducing a macro outlook of an economy are given below. First, there is a need to understand the functioning of the economy at the aggregate level to evolve suitable strategies and to solve the basic problem prevailing in an economy. Second, understanding the future problems, needs and challenges of an economy as a whole is important to evolve precautionary measures. Third, macroeconomics provides ample opportunities to use scientific investigation to understand the reality. Fourth, macroeconomics helps to make meaningful comparison and analysis of economic indicators. Fifth, macroeconomics helps for better prediction about the future and to formulate suitable policies to avoid economic crisis. Secondly, we will discuss scope of macroeconomics. Students, take the page number 2. Scope of macroeconomics. The study of macroeconomics has wide scope and it covers the major areas as follows. First, national income. Measurement of national income and its composition by sectors are the basic aspect of macroeconomic analysis. The trends in the national income and its composition provide a long-term understanding of the growth process of an economy. Next, inflation. Inflation refers to steady increase in general price level. Estimating the general price level by constructing various price index number such as wholesale price index, consumer price index, etc. are needed. Next, business cycle. Almost all economics faces the problem of business fluctuation and business cycle. The cyclical movements, boom, recessions, depression and recovery in the economy need to be carefully studied based on aggregate economic variables. Next step, poverty and unemployment. The major problem of most resource-rich nations are poverty and unemployment. This is one of the economic paradox. A clear understanding about the magnitudes of poverty and unemployment facilitates allocations of resources and initiating corrective measures. Economic growth. The growth and development of an economy and the factors determining them could be understood only through macro analysis. Next, economic policies. Macroeconomics is significant for evolving suitable economic policies. Economic policies are necessary to solve the basic economic problem, to overcome the obstacles and to achieve growth. Next, limitations. Macroeconomics suffers from certain limitations. They are: first, there is a danger of excessive generalizations of the economy as a whole. Second, it assumes homogeneity among the individual units. Third, there is a fallacy of composition. What is good often individuals need not to be good for nations and vice versa. And what is good for a country is not good for another country and at another time. Fourth, many non-economic factors determines economic activities, but they do not find a place in the usual macroeconomic books. Third, you are going to learn about economic and its types. The term economy has been defined by A.J. Brown as a system by which people earn their living. G.R. Hicks defined as an economy is a cooperation of a producer and workers to make goods and services that satisfy the wants of the consumers. In short, an economy is referred to any system or area where economic activities are carried out. Each economy has its own character. Accordingly, the functions or activities also vary. The functions of an economy by its activities is explained in flowchart 1. In an economy, the fundamental economic activities are production and consumption. These two activities are supported by several other factors. The ultimate aim of these activities is to achieve growth. The exchange activity supports the production and consumption activities. These activities are influenced by several economic and non-economic activities. The major economic activities include transportation, banking, advertising, planning, government policy and others. The major non-economic activities are environments, health, education, entertainment, governance, regulation, etc. In addition to these supporting activities, external activities from other economics such as imports, export, international relation, immigration, foreign investment, foreign exchange earnings, etc. also influence the entire functioning of the economy. Economics can be classified into different types based on the status of the development: developed, underdeveloped, undeveloped and developing economics. Second, system of activities, capitalist, socialist and mixed economics. Then third, scale of activities, small and large economics. Fourth, nature of functioning, static and dynamic economics. Fifth, nature of operation, closed and open economics. Sixth, nature of advancement, traditional and modern economics. Seventh, level of national income, low income, middle income and high income economics. Finally, we will discuss economic system. Economic system refers to the manner in which individual and institution are connected together to carry out economic activities in a particular area. It is the methodology of doing economic activities to meet the needs of the society. These are the three main types of economic system. They are capitalistic economy, capitalism. Second, socialist economy, socialism. And third, mixed economy, mixedism. Capitalism and socialism are two extreme and opposite approaches. In capitalism, there is total freedom and private ownership of means of production. In socialism, there is no freedom for private and there is public ownership of the means of production. Mixedism denotes the coexistence of capitalism and socialism. The futures, merits and demerits of various economic systems are discussed below. First, capitalist economy or capitalism. Adam Smith is the father of capitalism. Capitalist economy is also termed of a free economy or laissez-faire economy in Latin or mixed market economy, where the role of the government in minimum and market determines the economic activities. The means of production in a capitalist economy are privately owned. Manufacturers produce goods and services with profit motive. The private individual has the freedom to undertake any occupation and develop any skill. The USA, West Germany, Australia and Japan are the best example for capitalist economics. However, they do undertake large social welfare measures to safeguard the downtrodden people from the market forces. Features of capitalist economy. First, private ownership of property and law of inheritance. The basic features of capitalism is that all resources, namely land, capital, machines, mines, etc., are owned by private individuals. The owner has the right to own, keep, sell or use these resources according to his will. The property can be transferred to heirs after death. In short, private ownership of property, factors of production, assets, firms and factories and other institutions are the cardinal features of capitalist economy. Private ownership implies the right of inheritance as well. Second, freedom of choice and enterprises. Each individual is free to carry out any occupation or trade at any place and product any commodity. Similarly, consumers are free to buy any commodity as per their choice. In short, one of the most cardinal features of capitalist economy is freedom of enterprises. There is no restriction on the private initiatives of a person to start an enterprise, a firm or a venture. Third, profit motive. Profit is the driving force behind all economic activities in a capitalist economy. Each individual and organization produce only those goods which ensure high profit. Advanced technology, divisions of labor and specializations are followed. The golden rule for producer under capitalism is to maximize profit. In short, Adam Smith enthroned the concept of invisible hand of the profit as the central force of all capitalist economics. A butcher, a baker do their business not out of the public charity, but out of their self-interest to earn income and profit. Self-interest, otherwise known as the invisible hand of profit, makes an individual engages in some form of economic activity. This is the base of all economic progress in society. Fourth, free competition. There is free competition in both the product and factor market. The government or any authority cannot prevent firms from buying or selling in the market. There is a competition between buyers and seller. Fifth, price mechanism. Price mechanism is the heart of any capitalist economy. All economic activities are regulated through price mechanism, that is market force of demand and supply. In short, market or price mechanism is an inevitable features of a capitalist economy. In market, consumer and producer, representing the force of the demand and supply, determine the prices prevailing in the market, in turn influence demand and supply. These three forces, demand, supply and price, act and interact upon each other to make a capitalist economy to move further and further. Sixth, role of government. As the price mechanism regulates economic activity, the government has a limit role in the capitalist economy. The government provides basic resources, basic services such as defense, public health, education, etc. In short, government roles the minimum in capitalist economy. In other words, such economic functions as production, exchange and distribution are always in the hands of the private individuals or private sector. Thus, in the economic space, private sector dominates over the government and the public sector. Next, merits of capitalism. First, automatic working. Without any government intervention, the economy works automatically. Second, efficient use of resources. All resources are put into optimum use. Third, incentives for hard work. Hard work is encouraged and entrepreneur get more profit for more efficiency. Fourth, economic progress. Production and productivity levels are very high in capitalist economics. Fifth, consumer sovereignty. All production activities are aimed at satisfying the consumers. Sixth, higher rate of capital formation. Increase in savings and investment leads to higher rate of capital formation. Seventh, development of new technology. As profit is aimed at producers, invest on new technology and produce quality of goods. Next, demerits of capitalism. First, concentration of wealth and income. Capitalism causes concentrations of wealth and income in a few hands and thereby increase inequalities of income. Second, wastage of resources. Large amount of resources are wasted on competitive advertising and duplications of the product. In short, under capitalism, inequalities of income and wealth are very high. Luxuries are produced on a large scale. Such production involves use of scarce resources. Thus, scarce factors are diverted from the production of basic goods. Third, class struggle. Capitalism leads to class struggle as it divides the society into capitalists and workers. Fourth, business cycle. Free market system leads to frequent violent economic fluctuation and crisis. In short, economic instability means the operations of business cycles. Two major features of business cycles, inflation and deflation. Inflation is marked by rising prices and deflation by unemployment. These two leads to economic and social discontent among the masses. Last, production of non-essential goods. Even the harmful goods are produced if there is possibility to make profit. Second economic system, socialist economy. Socialism. A socialist economy is also known as a command economy or a centrally planned economy. It is with the publication of Karl Marx, Das Kapital and Communist Manifesto 1848 that firm foundation were laid for the distinct emergence of a socialist state. What was called scientific socialism under the former Communist International by Karl Marx became communism in the hands of V.I. Lenin and Joseph Stalin. This does not mean that socialism as a theory was introduced by Karl Marx. It is age old. A socialist economy is one in which there is predominance of the state, collective property and central planning, etc. It is also marked by a weak market, absence of private property and absence of profit motive. Here, the father of socialism is Karl Marx. Socialism refers to a system of total planning, public ownership and state control on economic activity. Socialism is defined as a way of organizing a society in which major industries are owned and controlled by the government. A socialist economy is also known as a planned economy or command economy. In a socialist economy, all the resources are owned and operated by the governments. Public welfare is the main motive behind all economic activities. It aims at equality in the distribution of income and wealth and equal opportunities for all. Russia, China, Vietnam, Poland and Cuba are the examples of socialist economics. But now there are no absolute socialist economics. Features of socialism. First, public ownership of means of production. All resources are owned by the government. It means that all the factors of production are nationalized and managed by the public authority. In short, in command economics, private ownership of property, assets and factors of production is highly restricted. All these are controlled by the state. Private individuals are given minimum property rights and entitlements only. Communist China, for examples, before embarking upon market socialism, allowed its citizens to own a homestead and a kitchen garden only. Second, central planning. The most significant features of a socialist economy is centralized planning. There is a planning authority to decide on what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. More than this, the Central Planning Committee stated the goal for the economy and also the time frame within which these goals are to be realized. V.I. Lenin, for example, launched his first 7-year plan in the year 1921. Later only it became 5-year plans. In India, 5-year plans are to be very great extent modeled after Soviet plan. Here, planning is an integral part of socialist economy. In this system, all decisions are undertaken by the Central Planning Authority. Third, maximum social benefits. Social benefit is the guiding principle behind all economic activity. Investment are planned in such a way that the benefits are distributed to the society at large. In short, in command economics, all economic decisions are taken by the states. State is all powerful. State there is in it plans, set goals for the economic welfare and the security of weaker section of society and the aged peoples. Fourth, non-existence of competition. Under the socialist economic system, there is absence of competition in the market. The state has full control over production and distributions of goods and services. The consumer will have a limited choice. Fifth, absence of price mechanism. The pricing system works under the control of regulation of the Central Planning Authority. Sixth, equality of income. Another essential features of socialism is the removal and reductions of economic inequalities. Under socialism, private property and the law of inheritance do not exist. Seventh, equality of opportunity. Socialism provides equal opportunity for all through free health, education and professional trainings. Eighth, classless society. Under socialism, there is a classless society and so no class conflicts it. In a true socialist society, everyone is equal as far as economic status is concerned. Merits of socialism. First, reduction in inequalities. No one is allowed to own and use private property to exploit others. Second, rational allocations of resources. The Central Planning Authority allocates the resources in a planned manner. Wastages are minimized and investment are made in a pre-planned manners. Third, absence of class conflict. As inequalities are minimum, there is no conflict between rich and poor classes. Society function is a harmonious manner. Fourth, end of the trade cycle. Planning authority take control over production and distribution of goods and services. Therefore, economic fluctuation can be avoided. Fifth, promote social welfare. Absence of exploitation, reduction in economic inequalities, avoidance of trade cycle and increase in productive efficiency helps to promote social welfare. Socialism. Red tapeism and bureaucracy. As decisions are taken by the government agencies, approval of many officials and movement of files from one table to other takes time and leads to red tapeism. Second, absence of incentives. The major limitations of socialism is that the system does not provide any incentive for efficiency. Therefore, productivity also suffers. Third, limited freedom of choice. Consumers do not enjoy freedom of choice over the consumptions of goods and services. Fourth, concentrations of power. The state takes all major decisions. The private takes no initiatives in making economic decisions. Hence, the state is more powerful and misuse of power can also take place. Third economic system, mixed economy or mixedism. In the real world, no economy is a pure traditional economy, a pure capitalist economy or a pure socialist economy. All decisions contains elements of these three economic systems in various proportions. Unrestricted growth of capitalism has resulted in two world war and the Great Depression in 1929. Differing with the classical economics like A.C. Bihu, J.M. Keynes advocate limited state intervention. That it was thought that government should restrict the market without killing the private initiatives of market. Market, on the other hand, submit itself to the regulations of the government because government is interested in the overall welfare of its citizens and the country. Mixed economy as an economic system had its beginning in this contest. Meaning of mixed economy. Mixed economy means the presence of both the state and the market in the economic activities of the economy. Both public and private sector are together in the market operating side by side. Here, in mixed economic system, both the private sector and the public sector coexist and work together towards economic development. It is the combinations of both capitalism and socialism. It tends to eliminate the evils of both capitalism and socialism. In these economics, resources are owned by individual and the government. India, England, France, Brazil are the examples of mixed economy. Features of mixed economy. First, ownership of property and the means of production. The means of production and the properties are owned by both private and public. Public and private have the rights to purchase, use and transfer their resources. Second, coexistence of public and private sectors. A mixed economy is marked by the coexistence of public and private sector. For example, in India, certain industries are reserved for public sector and certain other industries, especially medium scale, small scale and cottage industries are reserved for private sector. In a mixed economy, public and private sector are not competitive but are complementary. However, with the introductions of economic reforms in the year 1991, the Indian economy has come under the liberalization, privatization and globalization. This has led to increased emphasis on private sector. In short, in mixed economics, both private and public sector coexist. Private industries undertake activities primarily for profits. Public sector firms are owned by the governments with a view to maximize social welfare. Third, economic planning. In mixed economics like the Indian one, there is centralized planning. Planning objectives are designed to suit the overall welfare goals of the state. In the preamble to the Constitution of India, certain welfare goals are pronounced. The 5-year plan of India has adopted these goals. Here, the Central Planning Authority prepares the economic plans. National plans are drawn up by the government and both private and public sector abide. In general, all sectors of the economy functions according to the objectives, priorities and targets laid down in the plan. Fourth, solution to economic problems. The basic problem of what to produce, how to produce and for whom to produce and how to distribute are solved through the price mechanism as well as the state intervention. Sixth, freedom and control. Through private has freedom to own resources, produce goods and services and distribute the same. The overall control on the economic activities resides with the government. Merits of mixed economy. First, rapid economic growth. The best advantage of mixed economy is that it promotes rapid economic growth. Thus, both public requirements and private needs are taken care of. Second, balanced economic growth. Mixedism promotes balanced growth of the economy. It promotes balanced growth between agriculture and industry, consumer goods and capital goods, rural and urban, etc. Third, proper utilizations of resources. In a mixed economy, the government can ensure proper utilizations of resources. The government controls most of the important activities directly and the private sector indirectly. Fourth, economic equality. The government uses progressive rates of taxation for levying income tax to bring about economic equality. Fifth, special advantages to the society. The government safeguards the interest of the workers and the workers' action by legislating on minimum wages and rationing, establishing fair price shops and formulating social welfare measures. Next, demerits of mixed economy. First, lack of coordination. In a mixed economy, the dominance of public sector aims at equitable distributions of income, wealth and resources and regional balanced growth. In reality, regional growth may be highly imbalanced. For example, in India, Maharashtra, Gujarat, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu are highly industrialized, but Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and northeastern states are poorly industrialized. Private sector, on the other hand, lays great emphasis on the efficient allocations of resources and on higher profits on investment. The goals of public sector and private sector become conflicting. Therefore, coordinations of public and private sector is difficult. Here, the greatest drawback of mixedism is lack of coordination between public sector and private sector. As both work with the divergent motives, it creates many coordinations related problems. Second, competitive attitudes. It is expected that both government and private should work with a complementary spirit towards the welfare of the society, but in reality they are competitive in their activities. Third, inefficiency. Most of the public sector enterprises remains inefficient due to the lethargic bureaucracy, red tapeism and lack of motivation. Fourth, fear of nationalization. In a mixed economy, the fear of nationalization discourages the private entrepreneurs in their business operation and innovative initiatives. Fifth, widening inequality. Ownership of resources, loss of inheritance, and profit motive of people widens the gap between rich and poor. That's all for today. We will continue in the next class. Finish the assignment by clicking the link below.
Yeah.